Good morning, everybody, and welcome to you all, to UIA associate members, UIA supporters, and in the name of the Union of International Associations, I'm pleased to welcome you all to our third online masterclass in 2025. My name is Clara, and I'm the External Relations Manager from the Union of International Associations. As you may have noticed, this session is being recorded and will be posted on the UIA website. Okay. A very special welcome to our speaker, Marilyn Mehlmann. Marilyn is co-founder of Legacy 17, and she's the Vice President of the Union of International Associations. The aim of Legacy 17 is to curate, enhance, and disseminate people skills. Marilyn started her professional career in administration, worked for a manufacturing company, worked for the World Health Organization, and as an industrial journalist. She joined the computer world and worked in programming, then went into consultancy and adult education. Marilyn got increasingly engaged privately in questions related to what we now call sustainable development. So she used her private management consulting company to subsidize all sorts of initiatives to find better ways of doing things, including co-founding and directing the Swedish Institute for Social Inventions, as well as contributing to setting up the Global Eco-Village Network and its Swedish member organization. Along the way, she qualified as a psychologist and psychotherapist. And Marilyn has traveled the world extensively, teaching, coaching, doing action research, writing. The most current project in which Marilyn is engaged and in which the UIA is a partner is the setting up of an innovative educational platform offering space for transformative, self-defined learning journeys. The topic of Marilyn's masterclass is leadership for job satisfaction. And you are very welcome to write your questions into the chat. Marilyn will respond to your questions, maybe during or maybe after her presentation. And thank you for switching off your micros. Marilyn, the screen is yours.
Thank you so much. This is really a lovely opportunity to meet you. So thank you for coming, everybody. This is a topic that's very close to my heart. I started working with it when I was working in industry as a private action research project, because at the same time as I was consulting in industry, I was also teaching at the as a guest lecturer at the School of Psychology of the Stockholm University. I did that for about 10 years. And my students there were all very experienced. They had a lot of experience of working life. And they were coming to study psychology because they were looking for a career in what we at the time called personnel, and these days is mostly called human relations, that kind of thing. So I thought this was a great point at which to start an action research program about what actually is this thing, job satisfaction, and is it important? And if so, why and how? So this was a long time ago. And after that, subsequently, I carried on working with it in consultancy work with clients in several countries, notably in Norway and Sweden. And I found that it was extremely useful in my consultancy work. It became very useful in discussing with leaders, in discussing with employees, in improving performance, actually. So it served me very well, and I've carried on asking some questions, and I still do. And now I'm sharing them and the outcomes with you. That feels really good. Thank you. So there is a seminal question that I asked all of the students at the university, and that I've asked in surveys and in person, in interviews, in hundreds, probably thousands of people now. I've answered this question. So I thought, maybe you should have a chance to answer it as well. It's a very simple question, actually. And if you have your phone with you and switched on, you can actually plug into this Mentimeter. If you go to that, check in on that, you will find that you've come to a questionnaire. And the question is very simple. It's one question. You wake up one morning and you can hardly wait to get to work. It's fantastic. Wow, I want to get there. I want to get going. What is it that's pulling you about the work? Not necessarily about the gym that they have at work, but what is it that's pulling you about the work itself? You can type in, and it says enter a word if you've already got there. It doesn't have to be one word. It can be a very short sentence, 2 or 3 words, something like that. So do please put in what draws you, what attracts you on those days when you really feel as though you really want to get to work. Oh, and by the way, this is completely anonymous, but it will be picked up and used afterwards to see where we go on this, what answers you come up with. And when we distribute the material after this masterclass, we will, of course, share the outcome of this. So if you would like, you can continue to type in. The site is not closed. When I started looking at this business of job satisfaction, what is it? I found a lot of material is available. Actually, one that is used in this context is often Maslow, a theory of human motivation. It's something that he actually published in 1943. So it's been around for a while, very good. It still is very topical. And it's sometimes portrayed as a pyramid. I'm sorry, I was trying to share my screen there, and I don't think it shared, did it? I will try again. There we go. So then put this back onto the slide. So it's often shown as either a pyramid or a staircase. And what I found interesting about it when I started looking at it closely, and it's very good, I still like it very much, is the things at the bottom, the physiological needs that are in red, are quite different from the others. In fact, at some point, Maslow himself referred to them as hygiene factors. He said, they're not things that motivate you. They are things that demotivate you if you don't have them. So things like having a home, having an income that enables you to do what you need to do to live a reasonable life, all of that is, obviously you need it, yes. But it's not what motivates you to do stuff. Once you have sufficient, getting more doesn't motivate you to do more or better. Whereas all of the others, the more you get, the better it is, mostly, generally speaking. So I thought that was quite interesting. When I started looking at all the responses to that seminal question, that you are still able to respond to if you wish, I found that there were actually, it was more like a cube than a pyramid or a staircase. And that's because at the base of it, I found actually 4 factors of job satisfaction. I'm going to see if I can. Yes, the 4 factors of job satisfaction. And they're actually rooted in our nature as mammals, not as animals, but specifically as mammals. The first one is territory. Every mammal needs territory, which means access to resources. If you look at the behavior of animals, territorial behavior of animals, they don't try to keep all animals out of their territory, what they've marked out, only the animals that are competing with them for the same food or the same resources. So territory is very specific. The second one is community. And this also comes from our status as mammals, because mammals are born incomplete and they need nurturing and they need a tribe or a herd to nurture them, to take care of the mothers and the babies until they can fend for themselves. It might be forever, or it might be during a short period, as in some cases with birds, for example. But there is this need for community among mammals, which is quite long term. The third factor I found was change. It sounds strange in a way because we often say that people are resistant to change. But in fact, the opposite is really the case. I'll get back to that later. Mammals, and we're not only mammals, but we are predators. We are hunters by nature, by DNA, if you like. And predators, they spot movement, and movement means potentially dinner. And if nothing changes, no dinner. So we definitely need change as predators. All of this becomes transmuted as we move into modern working life. The fourth one is meaning. As I said before, in the community, we're born unfinished. We don't know what the world means when we're born. We have to find out. We have to impose meaning on everything that surrounds us, on what our senses tell us. So let's take a closer look. And I thought we might start with meaning and work backwards, as it were, down the list. Some people have claimed that the search for meaning is what differentiates humans from all other animals. And one of those who says that is Viktor Frankl, a very, very well-known psychologist. I'm not so sure about that. I don't know what goes on in the head of a dolphin. It's possible they also search for meaning. But I find it very interesting that industrial society has come up with the idea that employment as such might be the meaning of life. Now, this is really curious because even a couple of 100 years ago, this would have been an outrageous idea. You can quote, for example, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, who says that paid employment is a great misfortune to befall a free man. it's a misfortune. And it's very interesting to me when we're talking about meaning that we human beings can reverse our concepts in such a short space of time as 200 years or even 100 years, actually. If we can do that, we can probably do anything. That's the next question. Meaning starts very simply. Meaning making. The first visual image we learn to interpret is a shape that means one of us when we're born, newborns. Ants and other insects don't need to do that. They are born knowing what's what. They're born knowing how to interpret what's in front of them, what they have to do, and they just get on and do it. We are not, notably. And what we are first recognize is this. This is the first visual image we learn to interpret. It means one of us. And the next thing we learn to interpret as newborns, actually, is one of us that is mama and everybody else. So it's a very specific path that we start on from birth. When we're born, we are confronted with millions of visual stimuli, and we have no idea what they mean. We have to start sorting them and interpreting them and creating meaning. The next item on the agenda, working backwards from meaning, is change. And it's true that when people are exposed to very, very low levels of sensory input, like being put in a black box where you can't see anything, hear anything, basically not feel anything, you've got these gloves on that prevent you from feeling anything. There have been a lot of these experiments. At one point, they were very popular in certain circles, and they, as far as I know, all had to be broken off rather abruptly and rather quickly, because the people started going crazy, started displaying symptoms of extreme psychological disturbance. We need change. We need physical change. We need the senses, what our senses bring us. And we've brought that into our mental world as well. Boredom leads to physical as well as mental restlessness. It's not necessarily a bad thing as long as we can get out of it. But we are, as I said, predators like this lovely cat stalking through the grass. She's got her eye on something that just moved. Is it going to move again? If it does, I'll pounce. That's who we are. We are predators. So it's interesting to ask ourselves the question, why do we believe that people resist change? Change actually keeps us on our toes. It enables us to spot opportunities and risks. And we can resist it or we can use it. If it doesn't happen, we may well instigate it. I've seen this happen many times with in the working life. People whose jobs have become boring, routine, nothing changes. They'll change something just to make a change, even if it's negative. It means more work for them or less accurate results or whatever. We'll provoke change if that's what it takes to get our portion of change. So next on the list is community. I mentioned earlier that mammals all need support for mothers and babies who can't essentially fend for themselves. So there is this herd instinct. It's very strong in people. As a matter of interest, it's probably marginally stronger in women than in men. And we can get back to that later. But it's there for everybody. I mean, that's like saying that on average, men are taller than women, but that doesn't say anything about actual height. We all have a need for community. So how do we get from this herd instinct, and you hear people complaining about it sometimes in the workplace, you know, they're them, you know, that they don't talk to other people, to team spirit, real team spirit. And I'm going to claim that the way to team spirit is through diversity and inclusion. We don't get to well-functioning teams if we only associate with people who think and feel the way and look the way we do. So I'm going to say quite boldly, because I've demonstrated it in action, you can challenge me, it is possible to build a team with a great sense of we are this team, without falling into the trap of defining everyone else as them. But because the us and them spirit is so much simpler, we often take that path, not least in working life. And Ken Robinson, who's one of the modern gurus of education, says human communities depend on diversity of talent, not a singular conception of ability. Just think about your working life and your workplace. Think about you have the routines you have, things like the meeting culture, things like how performance is judged. Is it judged individually or on a group basis? Do you have an atmosphere, a culture at work that encourages questioning and diversity, diverse perspectives? If you do, congratulations. If you don't, then maybe there's something to be done. And then the last or first is territory. All vertebrates, I'm told, I've consulted zoologists, numerous zoologists throughout this research work, all vertebrates need territory, and it needs to be big enough, just big enough, to supply me with the resources I need for survival. And at work, that means having access to the resources I need to do a good job by my own estimation. So I need to be able to say, this is my version of a good job, and if I have the resources I need to do that, then I feel satisfied. Yeah? And the reason I say it needs to be just big enough and not bigger, it's very interesting. When talking to zoologists, I was pointed to a study in Sweden many years ago when DDT was still allowed, and forests had been sprayed with DDT to kill off a lot of stuff. And in doing so, they poisoned a lot of mammals, including a very large mammal, the size of a small elephant, that is rampant in Swedish forests. It's called a moose. Big animals. And the moose that had been sprayed with DDT, quite a lot of them, the male especially, they were responsible for defending the tribe, the herd territory, the alpha males. They went crazy. They took too much space. They kept taking more and more space. And the interesting thing was, the outcome was that they died of starvation because they were so busy defending this much too large territory that they never had time to stop and eat. I think some of us probably have come across managers like that. But enough said, you probably have examples of your own. So, yeah, this is quite an interesting observation, I thought, from the zoologists. Now, territory is not only about physical resources, and not least in the workplace. It's also about an inner conviction. When I start to feel that I can influence events, agency or empowerment, you could say, my sense of territory expands and I become less dependent on external circumstances. Now, this concept of agency or empowerment is quite central to high performance as well as to human well-being. It's really, really central to what we're talking about here, to job satisfaction and also to high performance. I'm going to stop sharing here, and I'm going to ask, at least I'm going to try. Now I found the button. And I'm going to ask you, are there any questions or comments so far at this point? And do feel free to raise your hand or to put questions or comments in the chat.
I don't see any questions in the chat at this moment, Marilyn.
Okay. So, but still, you're welcome. I'm going to take another run through the same 4 factors, but from a different perspective. So if you'd like to say something before that happens, feel free. Like you could use the raise your hand little symbol if you'd like to do that. We usually say that if there are no questions and no comments, then either everything is crystal clear or it's totally incomprehensible.
I see one question now from Elena. What came out from our survey, I was not able to participate due to technology hiccup. So
very good, Yelena. Thank you. You will get it with the notes from this session. It will come together with the notes. Because I had a hiccup in mine as well. I didn't manage to display them on screen. Sorry about
that. Which notes and how do you mean to share these?
So I'm proposing that we send a PDF of these slides to everyone who has participated.
I don't have the contact details. It will be posted on the website. So
yes,
if you have anything to share. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Okay. So in that case, I'll continue and start sharing again. Okay. Very good. So let's start again with territory. If we're looking at the workplace, what is healthy and what is unhealthy territoriality? And as a consultant, I've often come into a workplace where there's a very strong culture of me, mine, ours, us. There's my chair in the cafeteria, or our table where our group sits for lunch, or my coffee mug, even a little group having their own coffee mug with their own theme on it, and nobody else is allowed to use those mugs. Our task, that's our job. Don't come trying to interfere. That's our job. Let us get on with it. And so it's a culture of me or us and them. And it's not very satisfactory. It leaves a lot of people feeling as though their talents are not being used. And it's inefficient because, in fact, their talents are not being used. We're not getting the kind of diversity of viewpoints on what's going on that would enable rapid adaptation, for example, to change in the workplace. And indeed, the circumstances of work are changing more and more rapidly, as I'm sure you've all noticed. Now, I'm going to mention in this run-through both the symptoms of malfunctioning, if you like, and also some examples, and please remember they are only examples of the kind of steps that can be taken to improve the situation. I'm calling it treatment. So now we have a cat that is quite aggressive on the fence and defending its fence. Yes. And what can we do in the way of treatment? We can increase transparency and accountability. Very often when we have a strong me and us situation, it's not sufficiently clear who can contribute to what work and under what circumstances. And it's not sufficiently clear who is accountable. Better accountability and transparency generally support a more healthy expression of territoriality. But I think one of the most important things is the second one listed here, which is using mistakes as opportunities to learn. It's very easy when somebody makes a mistake, especially when it's an expensive one. One time I worked for IBM, and one of my colleagues whom I'd never met, who was on the other side of the Atlantic, published a book about his experience in IBM. And the first sentence was, "It's humbling to make $1 million mistake." Yes, we can learn humility, but we can also learn a lot of other things from making mistakes. And indeed, a mistake is only a mistake as long as you don't learn from it. Yeah, it's a learning opportunity. I know it's popular to say that and to say, oh, well, to shrug it off. No, it was a mistake. It could have been done better. It should have been done better. How can we do better next time? Yeah, so very specific, using mistakes. That's a part of the herd becoming a team. Reflecting together on what could be done better. And sorry, that was about territoriality. They all interlinked, but okay. When herd becomes team spirit, okay, we have cliques. A lot of workplaces have cliques based on similarities, and they exclude those who are different. They might be people who are different because they have a different background, different education, different skin color, different gender sometimes. I've worked in companies where, for example, the computing staff, IT people, regard management as idiots. So I've heard a programmer saying, well, we're designing this new program for management support that managers can use to plan projects. And he's saying, we're going to have to make this idiot-proof. Interesting. Yes. So, and in a situation like this, there's a loss of creativity, there's a loss of innovation, and there's certainly a loss of job satisfaction. So what do we do about this? Well, again, examples. One example is to encourage each person and each group to play from their strengths. They may be different. They have different strengths and probably different weaknesses. Let's see how we can encourage everybody to play from their strengths. We can reward team achievements rather than focusing very single-mindedly on individuals. And we can also set an example of open communication, talking about how we feel about things, our emotions, our values, not trying to make everybody stick to the agenda, which is the one topic that I think we ought to be discussing. So this opening up the agenda for communication and dialogue contributes hugely to the development of team spirit. And I could give you some statistics on that, but we don't really have time for that now, but it's a really, really interesting subject. Let's go on to change. Resistance to change. We've all heard about it. And here is one very depressed cat given up on trying to teach an old dog new tricks. You can't teach I've heard this so often, especially from older people, go and teach the young people how to do stuff. Forget me. Leave us alone. I hear this often as a consultant in the workplace. Leave us alone to get on with the job. Don't come here talking about change. Well, this is not because people are inherently against change. We're inherently against change that's imposed from without. This dog might learn many new tricks if it wasn't a cat trying to teach him. There are many ways of working to improve the capacity of working groups to be part of the change process rather than being hit by it. In many workplaces, changes come a bit like the weather. You try to read the forecast, but then it just comes wham and hits you. This is not conducive either to job satisfaction or to efficacy. So one treatment that I've worked with a lot myself was designed by a futurist called Warren Ziegler. He said that real and deep change is not something that you plan. It's something that happens when you have a reasonable balance between disappointment and hope. So if you have no disappointment, you have no reason to change. If you have no hope, you have no energy to change. So creating that kind of situation in the workplace where it's okay to be dissatisfied to a point, and it's okay to be hopeful to a point. When they are in balance, then change will emerge in response to changing circumstances. I think it's a very interesting concept. And it's related to futures, anticipation, foresight, future studies, or even just budgeting, looking into the future. The more people who can be engaged in discussions about the future, we can call them future studies, but we can also call them something much simpler or less pretentious. The more likely it is that both opportunities and risks will be anticipated. So the more likely it is that the future we will instigate changes that are forwarding for the opportunities and inhibiting the risks. And we increase job satisfaction by a huge amount when people feel able to influence the changes in their workplace. So what people resist is not change, but change imposed from outside. Okay, let's have a look at meaning. Meaning has a lot to do with values, with visions, with dreams. They are an essential part of our life. And symptoms of malfunction, on the one hand, people saying, well, it's just a job. It's just a job. Thank God it's Friday. I can go home and forget this stuff. But also anxiety, depression, burnout, which are so common these days and rising in importance. The cost, both in human terms and in money, is huge of anxiety, depression, burnout. So some examples of things you can do to change that. You can take steps within the workplace to build trust. In order to do that, you have to be trustworthy yourself. You have to demonstrate that you are trustworthy. I'm talking to managers now. Anybody can talk about values, dreams, and emotions at work, in relation to work. In an atmosphere where that's possible, many other things also become possible. So values, dreams, emotions, and we can also help to set realistic ambitions. So they're high enough to give our work meaning, but not so high as to be unachievable. And that, I think, is a part of the balance between disappointment and hope. We need to put our hope into the right size portions to be able to do something now and not wait for 5 years to be able to do something. I'm going to stop sharing again now. So here is another opportunity to have an opinion, to ask a question. Okay, so we will move into the last, just a few more remarks before we close for today. I will start sharing my screen again. So what I want to say here is something that is could be a topic for much more research. I haven't been doing any research on this for a while, but I'm thinking of restarting it. We have the 4 factors of job satisfaction that we've been through now, backwards and forwards. And they are, I think, very well established and very useful and quite different from most other definitions of job satisfaction, which tend to be viewing people from the outside. These are viewing people from the inside. So I think I have found them much more useful than the other models that I've found out there. I think also there are 4 dimensions of job satisfaction, or this is something, an idea that I'm working on, a hypothesis. I think they all have physical dimensions. I've sort of mentioned that we are all mammals. We have these physical dimensions of territoriality, and so on and so on. I think they all have mental, intellectual dimensions. You could ask yourself about that. I'm sure you'll find them if you look. I did anyway. They all have emotional, or if you like, psychological dimensions. You can ask a psychologist. You can ask me. I'm a psychologist. And I suspect they also all have spiritual or value-related dimensions. I think the question here is somehow what makes you feel at peace with yourself? Can that be expressed in relation to the 4 factors of job satisfaction? I believe so, but I don't know that for certain. So if you'd like to join me on a journey of exploration, feel free. I'll be looking at it more closely. Right up front, I mentioned that there is an article about this topic that I wrote in a magazine called Developing Leaders. It's in Developing Leaders. It's a quarterly magazine. It's like a small book, actually. Number 40, The Quest for Purpose, was the title of that particular theme of that particular number 40. And there's an article called Lead for Satisfaction. So I've put this into the slides so that when if you access the slides after this session, you'll be able to go directly there. And I believe you can download the article, but if you can't, let Clara or me know and I'll see to it that you get a PDF if you're interested. So thank you for your attention. I've talked about job satisfaction, the action research that has produced a model, a method, which I've touched upon in the treatment sessions, and an article. And I'm wondering it might also be a topic for a course. Yes, Clara was mentioning that we're talking about, we are setting up a new educational platform in cooperation, in partnership. Maybe it could come up there. I'm not sure, but maybe it could. If you have opinions about that, we'd be very happy to hear from you. And that's all from me. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thanks a lot for these insights. And I have a question, well, might be more a comment. I'm not sure you can respond to this in in the time left. But what I see is that there are new challenges for managers and for workers as well. After the pandemic, with the increased home office work, yes, how to keep teams together, how to be able to deliver the tools for job satisfaction as a manager, or how to behave as an employee and a worker, and how to find a good balance, yes, between being part of a team, managing to be creative within a team and doing your work, from home.
I think that's a really good question, and it's one we've been working with a lot in Legacy 17, because we are a virtual team. We are scattered, I was going to say around the globe, mostly in Europe, but also in many other places. And all of our projects are run mostly online. And we've put a lot of effort into both researching and developing methods to enable job satisfaction for everybody, whether they are at a distance. We had one who was actually for a couple of years because of the pandemic. She was due to start interning with us when the pandemic broke out, and she was in California, and she never got to come to Sweden. So we had to devise methods to include her, which included sometimes her getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, but she was okay with that. So we have developed a lot of methods and an approach over time that I think works extremely well. And I'd be very happy to discuss that with anybody who's interested, and also to share some of the specific methods that we use.
Thanks a lot. I see that. I see lots of thank yous in the chat. And I see that Elena has raised her hand. Elena, do you want to ask a question or give a comment?
I would like to give a comment. Just need to take off my headsets. First of all, Marilyn, thank you so much for this workshop or webinar. It's a very interesting topic to talk about job satisfaction. And what struck me is the idea which you always bring. So we invented a purpose of life as having an employment, basically putting ourselves into cages. And this is everyone just want to become employed in a good setting, of course. I wish I could go back and have, but also have those sufficient resources and maybe just experiment with other means like an entrepreneur. But that's another, maybe I need another life for it. In this life, I am employed and I do not yet see how to move to entrepreneurship or anything like that. This is one comment. Another comment is work-life balance for me is extremely important to be satisfied as well, because there are things which are outside of my job which I find interesting as well. They don't come, and when I'm fulfilled in those respects, I find my job interesting. And another comment is about change. I think no matter how old we are now, with the artificial intelligence and all the changes coming, everyone understands if you don't change, and if you don't embrace change, you are basically irrelevant, more or less. So and this, it's on one side it's scary to have this technology because many people might not have jobs because of this. So we need to see how to not protect, but also how to encourage our teams to embrace those novelties.
Change.
Thank you. Just on the question of work-life balance, which is, I feel that it's probable that what we've identified as job satisfaction is equally true of life satisfaction. I feel that we can use these concepts for everything we do, not just what we do at work as individuals. In fact, one possibility would be to do a self-paced learning course online so people can actually assess their own satisfaction levels and do something about them, whether it's in work or else. And the balance is part of that, obviously, the overall balance. So thank you for bringing that up, Yelena.
One thing with self-paced courses is there are so many of them now, and there are things which we are to do, of course. And once you have a self-paced course, it's so easy not to complete it because there are obligations and stuff. And as you say, the community is so important because once you have a meeting in this self courses or distance courses, it puts you on you a little bit of responsibility that you at least go through the material to be prepared for the meeting. Like fully self-paced course, for me personally, it's a mostly failure. I go to 2/3 of the course and I never finish the 1/3 at the end.
We shall bear that in mind when designing our courses. Thank you. Yeah.
While many further questions come up, I read some of the comments from Vera. She says, thank you. I don't have any questions. The information really resonates with me and my view on work enthusiasm. It reassures me that it's perfectly fine, not strange, to genuinely enjoy my work. That's Tiziana. Thanks for your presentation. By Fanwy Griffith, thanks for the insightful information. I had exactly the questions which I had asked. Clara asked about the impacts of remote working on community building, motivation, and trust building. I'd love to hear more about the specific solutions you mentioned, Marilyn. So if you share a document, of course, you have, that would be nice. Rodica thanks you, Marilyn, for leaving us with food for thought. And Nikki says it's a pleasure to meet you online, and she thanks you for this Leadership for Satisfaction workshop. You mentioned about potential partnership, and he's very interested. Okay, Nikki Cardenas from Erasmus Mundus, country representative for the Philippines. Oh, wow. Yeah, I hope it's a decent time for you to be part of the workshop, Nikki. So, okay, I think you can, yes, send, Marin, you are on LinkedIn, aren't you?
Absolutely, yes.
So Nikki can contact you via LinkedIn. Yes?
Yes, indeed.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Nikki.
Farah and Marilyn, I'm so excited for our partnership. So I'm currently the Erasmus Mundus country representative for the Philippines, and I'm connected at our government, the Commission on Higher Education, for promoting Erasmus Mundus in our country, and our Philippine higher education institutions would be happy to have you as our speaker. And I'm so much honored to meet you. Thank you so much. And also to the UIA committee. I received this through our president and our representative. That's why I attended. Thank you
Very
so
nice.
Okay.
Thank you. And I should say that an important part of my extended family is in the Philippines, in Tagaytay.
Wow. We'd love to have you here. We will welcome you. So nice. Thank you, Marilyn.
Right. And also to Mivanwe, I would love to talk to you more about this. I think it was a very good comment. So let's stay in touch. As I say, I'm on LinkedIn, so do contact me and we will see what we can do. And I'll stay in touch with Clara about this as well. Maybe we can do something together.
I will forward any comment to Marilyn necessary, and you will find all the content from today on the UIA website. And as well, go to our website, go to the newsroom, and there you will find the issues of the UIA newsletter. And in the October newsletter, Marilyn has, there is an interview with Marilyn. So please look into this. It's very interesting and yes, gives more insight into your so rich life of learning, teaching, and sharing knowledge, Marilyn. And just a word for closing, a big thank you to you all for being with us, to Marilyn for sharing her time, her knowledge, and this content with us, Marilyn, on job satisfaction, on tools, on leadership. I would like to invite all of you who are able to make it to join our roundtable in Brussels on November 21st. You can see the program on the website. You will see that we have fantastic workshops there, and we would be pleased to meet you in person. And if you're not able to come next year, you will be able to meet us on the next UIA online masterclass sessions.
Thank you.
Everybody, bye-bye.
Thanks a lot, Marilyn.
Thank you. Bye, Karin.
Thank you. Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you, Marilyn. Bye.
Bye all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.